Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Hanging in
Oh,
there.
good.
Guys having a good summer?
It has been good. Yeah. So far, so good. We were in Jamaica last
played
week.
real well.
We
Yeah,
were.
it was a solid putting day.
That's always
It
the
was
difference,
fun.
isn't it?
It was more resort than it was Jamaica. Yeah. I could have
Okay.
done it with a little more Jamaica.
I'd like to call the Tuesday, June 23, 2026 Board of Trustees meeting to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Action items. Public comments regarding action items are limited to 3 minutes. First on the agenda, or next on the agenda, is the resolution for considering an operating referendum and a revenue spending plan for Franklin Community Schools. Dr. Clendenning.
Thank you, President Gill. I'm going to step down here tonight as we go through the presentation, I think so that you can hear me and we can see each other as we move forward. Tonight we're here to kind of look at an opportunity that we have before us and offering the community a chance to partner with us for an Operation Referendum in November. I want to first talk a little bit about how we got here, and then I'll send it over to our new CFO, and he's going to give detailed process steps of how we came up with the number that we come up with, the referendum, and also the revenue spending plan. And then lastly, we'll have our Congressman Vice Miller Eric Long will talk about the law and the resolution and the ballot question. So first, looking at the why. Back in 2009 when I was hired, it was the first year also of Indiana property tax caps. And from 2009 to 2019, we did everything possible to create efficiencies. We partnered with Cummins. We looked at ways that we could still stay competitive and move forward, but we continued to kind of lose the battle on the circuit breaker impact for our school district. And through a lot of discussion over that 10-year period of time, we looked finally to the community to collaborate with us, and we asked for a 23 cent per $100 of AV house assessment to come to us to help us stay competitive. And at that time, when we talked about being competitive, we were talking about teacher salaries, support staff salaries, and safety initiatives. Through our partnership with Cummins, we created peer groups that looked like us. And we said, how are we doing? Just looked on our peer groups. And we were falling behind. We were in the bottom tier in pay for support staff. Teacher salaries at the time were $37,500. Our peers were in the mid-40s and above that. And safety initiatives and helping students, we also were falling behind. So through that, we decided that 23 cents would allow us to capture that and be in the middle of our peer group, be successful in recruiting and retaining people. And so in 2019, we asked the community to partner with us, and they did say yes to that, and we were very thankful. And through that partnership, we've had many successes. And tonight, as you hear more about the 2027 referendum that we're proposing and asking for your consideration, our successes included things like Eric Jenkins, the Indiana Teacher of the Year. You know what, we have many things to praise. We have here at the middle school, School Counselor of the Year successes. We have state championships in academics as well as in athletics and different opportunities. Without that partnership, I can't tell you today that we would have had those things. Because our teachers were leaving to say, hey, I can go over here to another school and make a little more money. Or we wouldn't have the opportunities to provide resources to get those kids the things that they need. So with those successes comes an opportunity for us to continue those things as we move forward. Mr. Ahaus is going to come and present kind of why we're choosing 29 cents in the next operation referendum request to the community, and then we'll look at what does that mean for us in terms of money that we need. So why now? Well, ideally, we would have waited one more year, because that would be our 8 years, from 2019 to 2027. The state legislation and General Assembly changed the law. Referendum can only happen on general election years. So 26, 28, 30, 32. So we have a choice. We have a choice to go earlier than the 27 day of deadline to now, and make sure that we can continue the program successes. If we waited to 2028, we would see a gap of resource allocations in that year. And then by doing that, we would also have a multiplying impact of waiting. We understand in the community that when we're asking for this partnership, it does come with them saying yes to our successes and paying additional dollars to us. We have a great community, and we have a great opportunity to continue our successes by doing this. So tonight, we're asking the board to consider the revenue spending plan as well as the resolution to allow us to move forward for the November election, where we put on a ballot question and ask the community to partner with us again. At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Ahaus to continue the conversation on the financial side on how we selected where we're going.
Thank you, Dr. Clendenning, and I'd like to follow up with some of the history of, and kind of hit on some different points here, a little bit following from the history of what he was just talking about, into why 29 cents, why the year that we're looking at, why all of those factors, with some information that we've been looking at for quite a while. So this isn't information that just came to us overnight. A little bit was, without going into too much detail about Senate Bill 1, that could be a whole night session on the impact of that to AV and the impact to us. But jumping into that, I think one important factor to look at is, and this goes into a little bit of the history and leads into where we're looking at moving forward, is to look at the overall tax rate of the school district. You can date back, you're looking at almost a decade back to $1.57, just over $1.57, and you can see leading into 2019 when the referendum was, in the orange you can see our debt service, in the blue you can see the operations, and then you notice in 2020 you see the light blue, which is the referendum taking effect. And certainly you see a jump in 2020 and 2021 when that referendum came in, but I think if you look not only at the course of 10 years, but the course of 5 years, really coming off of when that referendum really took effect, a concerted effort by the district to bring the overall tax rate down. If you look at 2016, $1.57, almost $1.58, and you move forward all the way to 2026, you see $1.23, $1 through 23 and a half. So, and then looking at 2021, you look at the last 5 years, you're going from $1.70 to $1.23. That is an effort of the people before me, from Dr. Clendenning, from the people involved with the school district, to put an effort towards bringing that overall tax rate down. We certainly can't control outside factors and other units and other things that come into play that impact that, but from a school district standpoint, you can see the effort that the district has made over time to bring that down. I will add to that, one of the landmarks of the community being the high school, and the high school comes off of our debt service at the end of this calendar year, which if you project that forward, then you would see that orange number go even more, looking at a number in the range of nearly 10 cents on that. So an overall tax rate that would go down even. So you would see that trend continue to go down as the district pushes to have that overall tax rate move down. So if I move to the next slide, let's see here, make sure I hit the right button. Nope, wrong way. There we go. So one of the things we're looking at with why 29 cents, why now, Dr. Clendening talked a little bit about that, but the referendum would expire at the end of 2027, so you can see some different lines here. One thing, and consistently you'll see in the graphs and in the conversation, would be this is really an ability to stabilize or sustain what we're doing, is really what the goal is here. So if you look at the yellow line that's up there, the yellow line would be stabilizing our cash flows through till 2034. You can see in 2027, things look, you see the yellow line continuing to go across, it's stabilizing that. You see the blue line, which would be the direction that our cash flows would go, letting the current referendum expire. So you can see where that blue line goes. The line above that in orange is the 23 cents. So you can see, and this goes into the impact of Senate Bill 1 and some of the impact that we're seeing, again, that we've studied now for over a year with the help of Policy Analytics and Baker Tilly, different groups that have helped us look at all of the aspects of our financial situation. And the 23 cents will not bring in the same amount of money that 23 cents once brought in. So you see, even if we were to sustain 23 cents, you see where our cash flows go over the course of a referendum that would continue 8 more years. So at 29 cents, you can see that line. It varies a little bit with our stabilizing cash flow because it certainly wouldn't bring in the same amount every year. So you see a little bit higher in the early years, dipping below. And we know, well aware that if, actually I'll go to the next slide because I think that helps a little bit too. When it talks about that tax rate and cash flows. Again, the yellow line, kind of the same colors here representing the same thing. Yellow being if we truly wanted to stabilize cash flows, what tax rate would it take year after year after year in order to be able to do that? And again, the referendum falls off in 27, so you see within 28 what starts to happen there with our cash flows. And what money is brought in, again, going into some of the factors without going into a lot of detail of Senate Bill 1 and what happens with tax credits and those kind of things. But all of a sudden in 28, you see where our tax rate would go up, or our referendum rate would have to go up to 30, 31, 33, almost to 34 in order to truly stabilize that cash flow. You see the orange line at 23 cents, where that would be in comparison to that line, and then where 29 cents comes into that, knowing that there's some changes, some things we'd have to do on our end, but that's a middle ground there to try to find in between stabilizing our cash flows and what we would have to do on our end to make adjustments to what we do to make up for that difference in our cash flows. So we have that 29 cents in there. So the last part of this would just start to get into, or actually before I jump into this, if there are any questions that you have at this moment, I can answer those about any of those graphs, and I know we've been through a lot of this information. So if I move on to then a little more of the specifics, and I'll have Eric Long come up here in a minute to talk a little bit more about the details of some of this process. But part of the levy and setting the rate would be the spending plan, which is a part of this resolution, looking at those key components, and it follows up with what Dr. Clendening said earlier too. Those 3 components being in this essential student health safety initiatives, support and retaining teachers and staff, maintaining class sizes and academic programming, and opportunities to meet learning needs of all students. So those are the purposes for this referendum levy, and I'll have Eric talk a little bit more about the processes of that.
Thank you, Steve, and good evening to the members of the board and administration. Once again, I am Eric Long with Ice Miller. We serve as bond counsel and work alongside Counselor Young as pertains to all things school finance. So that's part of the reason we're here this evening. I'd like to talk through the general timing as well as kind of the technical aspects of what the resolution under consideration this evening is. As far as timing goes, in order to get on the ballot in November of 2026, all of the school corporations legal steps have to be wrapped up by effectively July 31st. The first step is what we're talking about tonight, and that is the school board passing a resolution, making a finding regarding the need for the referendum. Then after that, and you'll notice, because this gets into the technical aspect a little bit, the form of the ballot question is included in the revenue spending plan as well as in the resolution. You'll notice a couple of blanks regarding meeting residents and annual property tax bill impact. That is because after the school board considers the resolution, assuming there's a majority vote, we would then pivot to talking to the county auditor for their certifications on those blank figures. So we're going in order of operations here. School board first, then talking to the county auditor, and then last but not least, we have to run the overall ballot question by the Indiana Department of Local Government Finance. Their purview is to review the ballot question as a whole to ensure that it's compliant with what's required by state statute, including much of the language you see in here is very specifically statutorily prescribed. The one piece that the school corporation has, what I would rephrase as an editorial portion, is what are the uses of the operating referendum. And you can see below, they're restated more plainly in the revenue spending plan. So the three categories you see with the estimated dollar amounts assigned to those. Those are the editorial portions, if you will, that the DLGF also reviews once they have seen a certified school board resolution and once they have seen the county auditor's certification on their own values. So there is a quick summary on, again, just the overall time and the order of operations, as well as kind of the format of the resolution. You'll notice as well that with the resolution, it's a general finding of need, the approval of the ballot question as you see in the revenue spending plan, and the approval of having the administration work to discuss with the county auditor, discuss with the DLGF, so that all of the other legal steps can be buttoned up by that July 31 deadline, at which point things would get turned over to the county election board so they can put the question on the ballot and go through those technical pieces so that you guys are on the ballot come November 3rd. Happy to entertain any questions you may have regarding the process, the resolution, the ballot language, et cetera.
May I ask a question? Oh, thank you. Eric, does the creation and operation of tax increment financing districts, TIF districts, have any impact on the property tax revenues available to schools? And if so, how?
Yes, great question. With Johnson County seeing a lot of TIF districts being formed, the general premise, absent a referendum, is that those areas that are in a TIF district, the assessed valuation increase is not available for school corporations. What changes that is the operating referendum. And so when we talk about operating referendum dollars, the increase in value for those areas that are within a TIF district do become accessible and part of the computation for an operating referendum.
And otherwise, they would not be captured?
Correct. The only way to capture that is through a referendum. That's absolutely correct.
Thank you.
And the one other item I will point out too is when we look at the proposed rate and the proposed max levy in the ballot question, our guidance that we got from the state as of last year, because the ballot question has changed a couple of times since the school board undertook a resolution last in 2019. This most recent change came about with Senate Enrolled Act 1 for this specific ballot language. And the guidance we've gotten from the state is that both the rate and the levy are independent of one another, and both must be met for the next 8 years. So in other words, as we project out to 2034, which would be the last year of this referendum, both tests would have to be met. So 29 cents on any given tax bill, as well as the max amount of $9 million you can see here in the question, projecting all the way out to 2034. So that's part of the rationale for the max levy and the max rate, is that those are independent of one another and will have to be met for every single year of the resolution going out to 2034. And we all know the cost of everything from a cup of coffee to a school bus has risen since 2019.
Yeah. Does anybody else have questions?
Mike, back over to Dr. Clinton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple things I want to highlight as well, as Eric mentioned, the independence of the rate and the levy. One of the things that you will have before you each year during the budget process will be Mr. Ahaus presenting the referendum budget as well. That is also new. You know, in the past, for us, we've presented how we spent the referendum. That was not required by state law. Now, state law requires when Mr. Ahouse is putting the budget together, he must also present the referendum budget for your approval. So the rate may change. It could change. If we see that we don't need the 29 cents, you have the ability to lower that. Same with the levy. We had to give the maximum levy that we would collect, the resources that we would collect. Doesn't mean that you wouldn't say at some year that we don't want that you would lower that. So that is something that we'll work with Mr. Ahouse on in that, but we have to give maximums as we travel forward. You know, as Steve was talking about this slide, you know, we can never exceed 29 cents if the board says yes to the resolution that we're presenting. We can never exceed 9 million, and the DLGF will make sure of that each year as we present the budget. So I want to make sure everybody's clear on that. That is a nuance. It's a little different, even though we practiced sharing how we spent the referendum last time. Steve worked hours on the 3 domains here, and collectively that we decided that 50% of the money would go to teachers and support staff to ensure that our guiding principles reign, that we have individual student growth moving forward as the #1 thing. And then looking at the essential health and safety, an example of what that would be, and I'll just use a partnership that we have with JMH. If you go back to our contract with JMH, they were paying for our athletic training services, if you remember. Well, because of changes in the contract, that's not the case anymore. We now foot the bill for not only one athletic trainer, but all 3. In order for us to continue to do things like that and really support our student athletes and our students when they participate, and we continue to see a growing number of student participations in grades 5 through 12, we need to make sure that we can have that space, and so that's what that provides. So that's what you're looking at, student health and safety initiatives, that's what that would include. And then the managing class sizes, I think that's a really important part of our journey, and also looking at our pathway structures that we're moving forward. Do we want to be competitive and give our kids the best chance to be successful? Brooke's going to share in a couple board meetings coming up that our literacy scores are soaring. We're doing really, really well. But you know what? We have instructional coaches that aren't in the classroom. They're coaching our teachers. And without them, I would tell you, we probably wouldn't be where we are today. So those are the opportunities that we see. And so Steve's looked at that and said, okay, this is how I can best manage the budget when it comes to everything. And so when you look at those dollar amounts, and Eric helped us put the final topping on this to get that, that's what that is. It's actually 50%, 25%, 25%. And that's what will remain, and Steve will then work with you on, and myself with the levy and rate. Can you go to the resolution, please? So this resolution was created in conjunction with Ice Miller and Long, but this is the referendum resolution, and as Eric said, it details why we need the operating referendum, and we can continue just to kind of move forward. I want to go to the ballot question, though. You'll see shall Franklin Community Schools increase property taxes paid to the school corporation for no more than 8 years for the purpose of funding and sustaining educational and operational funding stability in response to reductions in property tax revenue, including supporting and retaining teachers and staff. And you'll notice that is the first thing that we talked about. So if you go back to revenue spending plan, that's also the #1 thing. We look at then essential student health and safety initiatives, and then managing classes, academic programs, opportunities to meet the learning needs of all students by imposing a property tax rate that does not exceed 29 cents and results in a maximum annual amount that does not exceed $9 million. If this operating public question is approved by the voters for the median residents of, and we will get that number from the local auditor. I will tell you that Mr. Ahouse has been in communication with them, and we should be receiving that shortly. The property's annual property tax will increase by, we have to give the actual dollar amount there based on the median home, so that will give everybody an example. The most recent operating referendum public question proposed by the corporation was held in May 2019 and passed. So those are what we have to put, that would be on the ballot. So what we're asking for tonight is for your approval. The other thing I think, as you look at this, you'll be further resolved that the superintendent, assistant superintendent, or chief financial officer, president, and secretary of the board be and hereby authorized to certify a copy of the resolution to the DLGF. So you'll notice, because we have those two blanks in there, I'm gonna have to come back and have President Gill and Ms. Mann come back and make sure that we have those signed, so we can send them off to DLGF once we have that. And so that's what that's asking for as well. And then go to the revenue spending plan.
Any questions? Any questions, anyone?
Can you close out of that, and I think that will get it to us. Yeah, back to the agenda, go to the proposed revenue spending plan. This is also what will be included to go into the DLGF. You saw a picture of this on Steve's slide deck. It's the question as well as the proposed spending plan. At this time, I would ask the board to consider the resolution and spending plan as presented by Mr. Ahouse and myself.
Does anyone have a motion?
I don't really have any questions, but I just thank you to all of you for the preparation and the assistance through this. I keep my comments short, but obviously when I started down this journey of being on the school board, this is not really what I thought would be in our second year of serving, but I also don't think that any of us had SEA 1 on the radar either. So I know these conversations are ongoing throughout a majority, I would say, probably a super majority of districts throughout our state. While I commend the State House folks for attempting to fix property taxes, unfortunately this is some of the negative ramifications of those acts. So I do think I think the story that shines the brightest for me is the fact that there has been an impressive job done by the leadership to significantly reduce the overall tax rate, and I think that should be the story. Just quick math, right? I mean, as we look into 27 with the high school coming off, you're about a 57-ish cents savings, and that includes the 23 referendum already in there. So I think the request is 6 cents of that, almost 40% savings coming back to the district. I hope that's not too insurmountable for all of us to move forward. But with that being said, I'll leave it for any other comments. But I appreciate your guys' efforts. And I do appreciate the fact that we are aware that it will require a continued decrease in management of our expenses. As I view that red line, to me it's interesting that it's red, because to me it's kind of a triage rate, right? It will keep us moving forward. It does not generate an absorbent amount of additional cash above where we sit today. And so I think Steve used the word sustainable rate, and I think that's the key too, is that that is what it will do for us, is keep us moving forward as we would like to do, and following our guiding principles. So.
I too commend the efforts of the administration. I know that this has not been an easy thing to decide upon, but I also feel that it is necessary. So yeah, thank you for providing all the information, all the time that you guys have taken to compile it all. Other than that, I don't have any more comments.
Happy to entertain a motion.
I will make a motion.
I will second the motion.
All those in favor signify with aye.
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 So moved.
Thank you, Madam President. We'll continue to be good stewards, and this does not, just to reiterate what Mr. Jones said, this does not place place us in front of everybody. We're in the middle of our peer group, we continue to be, but we'll continue to shine brightly with all of our endeavors, teachers, programming, and health and safety needs. So I'm excited about the future and continuing the conversation. One last item that we do have, if you recall at the last board meeting, we have Franklin Cub Academy coming along. You need to get some logos and opportunities. We do have Principal Smith here today to answer any follow-up questions on the logo. I think the one change we did make is before you'll see that the establishment is 2015, is that correct? We're only asking for you to approve the establishment in 2015 for the Franklin Cub Academy. So that's why that's here tonight, so she can get those printed as we get ready to head to the school year. That's why it's coming before you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the logo for Franklin Cove Academy. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Any other comments, questions?
I would move to adjourn.
It's been moved and seconded, we adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.